I needed to go beyond survival. I eliminated survival mechanisms and started living my life in abundance. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Krys, and here we talk about business, candle making, and how to boss up. And today's video is definitely a boss up video. I haven't made one of these in a very long time, but I have desperately missed them, and it is definitely something that feeds my soul. So this topic is definitely on par with how I'm feeling. And so we're going to get into some things today, and we're going to be talking about following joy into your purpose. So let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know a lot about me, I am Krys. I said that at the beginning of the video, and a part of why I started a YouTube channel was because I got laid off from my job and I wanted to start a business, and I wanted to document that business. And so one thing that I don't talk about often, unless you've watched some of my very first videos, is how me losing my job was such a pivotal moment in my life. I always had a job. I always worked because I never wanted to depend on anyone else for my finances. I never wanted to be without, and I never wanted to not have what I needed. Bare minimum, what I needed, not what I wanted, not what I needed. I never wanted to be without those things. And so I always had a job. I always kept a job, and working was my sense of security. I'm also an artist, and I have written a book. I used to travel doing spoken word. I used to compete in a lot of poetry slams growing up, and art was definitely my outlet, but something that I always wanted to pursue professionally. But because I don't take risks, and taking risks has always been one of my biggest fears, I always stuck to working a 9 to 5 and also on the side pursuing my art. But in 2019, I got laid off from my job, a job that I was actually very comfortable working. It was a job that I wasn't, of course, passionate about, but it was a job that, you know what's crazy? The day, like 2 days before I got laid off, I literally said to myself, I'm comfortable here. And then 2 days later, I got laid off. And so when I got laid off, it wasn't something that, of course, I wasn't expecting. It was my day off. I had literally just got my teeth pulled. I'm literally recovering from my wisdom teeth. I'm still swollen, and I got laid off from my job, and it was such a shock. I was shooketh. And I didn't know where I was going to go after that. I didn't know what to expect. I was really like a deer in headlights. But it wasn't only me feeling these things, because the company that I used to work for, they laid off 30% of their company. And after I got laid off, I made a very crucial decision. And I told myself that I was not going to rush back into finding another job, because it was something that I had always done, and under this false narrative that it was secure. And when I got laid off, it was like the rug had been ripped from under me, and I realized that these companies don't actually care about us. And if they need to make cuts, they'll make cuts where they need to. And our feelings, our lives, and everything that we've contributed to this company goes out of the window because they're worried about their bottom line. And when I had this moment, when I got laid off, I realized that there's no such thing as security when you're working for someone else. And I've always wanted to start my own business. Little did I know I would be jumping head first into starting one. And it was a very scary time, but I made myself 2 promises. That if I wasn't going to go back and looking for a job immediately, the things that I wanted to accomplish while I was figuring things out was, 1, to learn how to listen to myself, and 2, to follow joy. And I made this commitment to myself not knowing what was in store for me, because it led me on a beautiful journey. It led me on a road of discovery for myself, and it allowed me to realize sometimes the things that we pray for don't come in packages we expect them to come in. I think in my journey, I realized that me getting fired or laid off was in alignment with what I had been asking for. And I had been manifesting these things and didn't exactly expect me to lose my job. But if I hadn't have lost my job, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I wouldn't be here today if I didn't make these pivotal decisions in my life to follow joy into allowing me to find my purpose. So, some things that I did when I got laid off, when I decided to follow joy. Like, what does that mean? What does follow joy mean? And to me, what it meant, I gave myself these broad ass commitments, but to me, following joy meant to let happiness lead me into where I was going. So that meant if I felt a connection with someone, instead of me leaving that connection and going on about my business, I would engage more. I would say, hey, do you want to hang out more? It was a lot of getting outside of my comfort zone and following my gut feelings. And I'm a super intuitive person, and for a long time, because I was so focused on a job and also trying to create my art and trying to create all of these other things that actually didn't fulfill me, I lost sight of my gut instincts. And so this following joy for me meant follow my gut, follow the things that feel right, and see what happens. And so it led me into new friendships. One of my friends, it led me into an old acquaintance that soon became my friend. Let me clarify that. She recommended some books. I read those books. Those books literally changed my life. I talk about big magic all the time. I read this book called, what is this book called? I don't remember what this book is called, but Big Magic is the one I die by. I live for this book. Everyone who I've ever recommended this book to, lives enlightened. It's all on theory. It's about creativity. It's about artists. It's beautifully written, and it just provides a lot of perspective, and ultimately it allowed me to give myself grace during this journey that I was about to embark on. When I read that book, that was the first book that I read after getting laid off. And I think I read this book like 2 weeks or maybe a week after I got laid off. Like literally like back to back. Read this book, mind is blown. Read this other book that I can't remember the name of right now. And I just started reading. I became curious about life. I was just in a curious state. I wanted to learn myself again. I wanted to learn what made me happy. I wanted to learn what made me excited. I wanted to learn what made me sad. I wanted to learn about what I didn't like again. I really wanted to learn this person that I had become but haven't had time to pay attention to because of job, because of music, because of writing, because of this book I want to write, because of all of these things that are distracting me from checking in with myself. And for the first time, I got to focus on me. And when I got to focus on me, so many crazy things happened. And so many synchronicities, so many connections that I made, so much happened. And it truly just opened my mind up to how limited I was operating before. So when I talk about bossing up, when I was talking about bossing up last year and y'all was bossing up with me, I will tell you that I was truly challenging myself. I was reading, I was staying curious, I was hacking myself, hacking the things that I didn't like to change, make changes, and I learned a lot about life and how simple it truly is, and the connections and all of the people that we meet, how intersected they actually are. And I know I don't know how I'm sounding right now, but honestly, the time that I got to spend to just focus on myself truly transformed my outlook and truly gave me a lot of perspective on how much following joy can take, like where it can take you. Following joy into your purpose. First of all, if you're thinking or wondering or thinking about your next step or what you want to do and you feel stuck, honestly, I would wholeheartedly recommend you to read Big Magic. It is one of my favorite books. I always go back to it. I just reread it, and it's not a self-help book. I think that's why I like it. It's not a book that's going to tell you you need to do these things in order to get this outcome. It's going to give you one person to count and her theories. And she's like, this is what the fuck worked for me. If it works for you, it works for you, okay? And I think that in that alone, it gave me permission to look at myself from a non-judgmental way and feel a lot less crazy about the things that I may have experienced, and know that there's someone else out there who I deem successful that has also struggled with the same exact things I've struggled with as a creative. And so, with that being said, if you're on a journey, you're trying to figure things out, and you don't know where you stand, and you feel like you're scrambling to figure out life, I would say listen to yourself in the smallest ways possible. I'll give you an example of one of the crazy moments that happened to me during this listen to myself, follow joy journey. I had reconnected with a friend, or an acquaintance that soon became my friend, and me and her were spending a lot of time together because she was on this creative lifestyle journey too. And so we bonded over that. It was like we reconnected at this moment in both of our lives where we're like, we want to live creative lifestyles, and we want to figure out what it's like while we have the time and we have the funds to take care of ourselves and aren't stressed about it. And so she's recommending these books. I'm talking to her. She's talking to me. We're venting. We're like going through this journey together. And I had like weird scenarios happen. And like this scenario is the one that broke me. I was like, yo, what is happening? And so in the book called Big Magic, she refers to listening to yourself as listening to the nudges. And so when you get this little nudge to do something and you do it and you realize, oh shit, like, you know, and it leads you onto this scavenger hunt of nudges that you realize is all connected. And so I was like listening to my nudges. And so it would lead me to this person, it would lead me to this thing, and it was just so crazy. I don't even know how to describe this. But this particular moment, I was at home, I was in the bathroom, I was doing my hair, and I got this nudge to ask her if she wanted to go to the beach. And like, I don't like the beach, or at least I didn't when I lived in LA when the beach was like down the street. But I just wasn't a beach girl. I'm not an outside girl. I'm an inside on the couch. Give me some popcorn and some hot cocoa, and we're good. And so I'm like doing my hair, and I'm like, I don't want to go to the beach. So I never asked her. Literally never asked her. And so she calls me, I think the day after, because we were supposed to get breakfast or like work together or something. And she calls me the next day, and she was like, because we didn't end up hanging out, and she said something like, hey, my bad, I went to the beach yesterday and blah 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 blah. And when she said that, I was like, or no, she texted to me, and when she said that, I was like, what? You went to the beach yesterday? Tell me more. Tell me more. What do you mean you went to the beach? How did you decide going to this beach? What time of the day were you thinking about going to this beach? Because in my mind told me to ask you if you wanted to go to the beach, and you said it went all the way left, and I didn't ask, was I the missing piece? Like, my mind was literally like rolling to the point where I started crying, because I was like, and like, this is just one example of like many examples of like scenarios like this happening, where it was like, do this, do that. And I was like, I ain't trying to do that yet. You know what I'm saying? And it ended up like the thing happening without me. And I was like, wow. And like these things would happen like literally randomly. Like I said, I don't even like going to the beach. So the fact that I was like, call her, see if she wants to go to the beach. It was like, huh? And I literally broke down in tears like, yo, like this me listening to myself thing. Crazy. This goes on. I started meditating more. I started really digging within myself, learning more about myself. And ultimately, I let go of fear in this process. And it was just one part of the process that happened naturally. It wasn't something that I knew how to do. I didn't realize how fearful I was to take risks until I just started taking them and realized how easy it was to just say, fuck it. Like, you know, like I was like, what have I been afraid of this whole time? It was such an eye-opening moment. And I think all of these things led me to now where I am, living in North Carolina. I didn't expect to live in North Carolina, but I had a series of crazy situations, experiences that led me here. And I will say that following myself, following my gut, following joy led me to do what makes me happy, what makes me feel at ease, what makes me feel like my life is truly in my own hands and I have complete control to make whatever I want to happen. When I say my confidence boosted onto 1,000, you could not tell me anything, okay? You couldn't tell me nothing. And it was because like the strength and the strength it took for me to even take those risks, the strength it took for me to not go and run and scurry into another job, the strength it took for me to take a stance in myself and a stance and for what I believed I was capable of doing. I said I bet on myself. And when I said I bet on myself, it led me into the job that I have now that I love. It led me to the friendships that I have now that are nurturing me. It led me to me buying a home. Literally didn't know how I was going to do that last year. And ultimately, it truly taught me how to love myself. Because I learned myself. I learned what I needed to I learned what I needed to go beyond survival. I eliminated survival mechanisms and started living my life in abundance. And so when I come here and I tell y'all we bossing up, this is what I mean, because we need to boss up. We need to let go of fear. We need to live in abundance. And so I'm honestly gonna leave y'all with that. I hope you got something from this, because we bossing up in 2021. And I will see you in the next video. Bye. You told me I could trust you.